All right, so we're going to be starting the Rudolph Needle felting class. So this is a little sample that I made. You can see it has the antlers, the nose, the little eyes, and I'm working on making the other leg here. So I will show you guys that when we get to that step. And in the picture that I had posted for this class, the legs were kind of on the bottom, but I'm just going to put the legs on the side of this little Rudolph so that it sits up and it doesn't really roll over. Okay. All right. So some of the materials that we're going to be using to do this, and especially if you've never done needle felting before, this is just like a quick intro to some of the materials. First, you're going to need needle tools. Okay, so these are needles and they are barbed needles. They're very sharp, so please be very careful. Usually if you get a kit, they have these little leather finger covers that are used. I don't use them, but if you are concerned about poking yourself, which is pretty common, you could use those. And then we also have a couple of varieties of needle holders, okay? If you don't have a holder at all, you can just use the needle by itself like this, usually 2 needles at a time. And they have a single needle tool holder like this one. They sell one that has 3 needles in there. They have this one, which is a really popular one because it has this little protective cover on it. And this one has 5 needles in there, okay? And then this is a little bit bigger one, and this one has, I think, 8 needles in there. And so on this one it's missing, but it has a lot of needles that you can use to, nice one, to work with, okay? So this is kind of like the larger version, getting down to the smaller up until the single needle, okay? We also have a couple little extra tools that we might need, like scissors, a small awl, or if you have like a nail, you could use a nail from your home. This is just another version of an awl. And we have for this project a little bit of glass eyes, and these are going to go in to make, the eyes at the end. These come in different sizes. Usually they're a part of a kit or they might be sold separately. And then we also have for this class a couple of pre-made, pre-felted wool balls, okay? So these can be purchased individually if you don't want to start from scratch making the center. This one's a little bit of a bigger one. And then I really got lucky and found these kind of like felt beads. And I thought, wow, they'd be perfect for this little Rudolph nose. So I will show you guys how to make a little ball, but they all start the same way to start a ball. So if you don't have these or you don't want to purchase these separately, you can just start off making a single ball. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that first, okay? And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of this roving, and this roving is just a little bit cheaper than the colored wool, but it's just the basic filler that you would use to start a project if you don't have any of the pre-made felt balls, okay? So I'm just going to get some of this. If you want to separate the wool, just make sure you pull it apart gently instead of trying to pull it tight and, it's kind of going to log up, okay? So to make a ball, all I'm going to do is just start by rolling it in my hand and really trying to kind of just smush it together. Okay. And, something like this. Okay. Then I'm going to start to just kind of tuck it in a little bit, try to get it as compact as possible. And so it's nice and tight, especially for your structure, okay? You want to make sure you start with a nice, dense structure because then it's not going to be holding up for the rest of the project, okay? And everyone always asks, how do you know when it's done? And one way that I like to tell people, especially if they're not in person, they're online, is that you want to feel it. And if it still feels like cotton, then you need a lot more, okay? So this one also, it's starting to get a little bit dense, but I just started, so I just want to keep going all the way around, moving it as I go, okay? And eventually you're going to get some of the parts that are sticking and locking. So you can kind of think of it as like a Velcro where the wool that's on the top is getting buried in the little ball. Okay, so you're kind of like smushing the little fibers in there and they're kind of burying themselves and making it all denser. Okay, so to make this ball, just kind of keep it moving. Try not to poke yourself. Okay, so all these needles are pushing the fibers and burying them inside. So this is starting to get a little bit more collapsed in. And I would just keep going and going and going until I get a ball like this. Oops, this has some red on it. Okay. So when you feel the ball, it should feel kind of firm. Like you can push it in a little, but it feels like a firm little ball. This one still feels like cotton. You can still smush it. Okay. So this is not ready at all yet, but eventually if I keep going and going around this one, it's going to get denser and denser and smaller, and it's going to get the firmness of this. Okay. And then if I keep going and adding more layers, then I would get the firmness of this ball. Okay. So that's all it is to make a ball. And sometimes that's the part that takes the longest if you're starting from scratch. So what I like to do in my classes is to just use pre-made little felt balls just to get things going. Okay. All right. So that's how you make the ball. Okay. I'm going to start using this bigger one, and I'm going to get the color that I want to make this Rudolph. So I'm going to get this brown. So I'm just kind of pulling gently. And I just want to start to wrap this ball in the color that I want. Okay. So once I have it kind of packed up a little bit, I'm just going to get my ball, lay it on there, and just gently wrap it around. Try not to leave any like bald spots. Okay. So I'm just going to stick it on there. And as you're felting, you should hear kind of like a crunching sound as you're burying the little fibers into the ball. Okay. If you don't hear those, then you may not be going deep enough. Okay. Here, I'm going to take some of the wool and try to cover up the little bald spot. So this is just going to take some time to just kind of layer it. Keep yourself moving around the ball. Trying to tie down or tack down any of the like looser areas as you're working. Okay. And once I have it kind of tacked down, even just lightly all the way around, okay, then I can get another piece. Again, pulling it gently. And maybe I'll just lay this on here on top. Okay. So eventually what I want to get is a ball that's nice, round, and smooth. So this is going to just take some time to go around, okay? And as you'll notice, you're working on it, it's going to have like these lumps, okay? So just make sure that when you're using the needle tools, start with the wider ones first. But if you feel like you need to get into some areas that are especially lumpy, you can switch to a smaller amount of needles. So maybe here there's like a weird lump And maybe I just want to push this little lump in here just to make sure I'm getting it nice and even. Okay, then you can switch back to the bigger one. Okay, or even the really big one. And this is going to just make your work go a little bit faster, but needle felting is still a long process. You know, you still want to work carefully, one, so you don't poke yourself, and two, just slowly so that you're making your parts even and the surface is becoming kind of smooth and easier to work with. Okay. Might want to be really focused on it for the first time you're trying it, but then eventually as you kind of get the hang of it, maybe you're sitting and watching TV or a movie or something as you're needle felting. So it can be very relaxing once you kind of get the hang of it. All right, so here the ball is starting to come together, less lumps. Try not to stay in one area because then you're going to start flattening it out on that side, okay? So just keep yourself moving and circulating through. That way you don't get a lopsided ball. And this layer is adding a little bit of thickness to the ball, but it's not going to make it very, very thick or enlarge it that much. So what you want to think about is, if you want your little reindeer to have a bigger head than this, then you might want to add another couple layers of it and then go from there. So for right now, I'm still going to keep it kind of that small size, so I'm not too worried about that yet. I want to just make sure it's smoothed out and I like the amount, so I'm leaving the thickness of the hole the same. Want to make sure all the areas are covered and there's no like bald spots or the white color poking through. Okay. So if I had more time, and I wasn't recording, I would probably stay here and just kind of work on this ball a little bit more. But for the purposes of this recording, I'm going to just leave it a little bit loose, but stiff enough to work with. Okay. So that's going to be my head. And I'm going to follow the same process for the little ball. Okay. So same thing. I'm going to wrap the body in the brown. Down. The part sticking out there. Okay. All right, so for this one, whenever I'm attaching something, okay, and this is kind of exaggerated, but I kind of want to leave a little bit of extra fluff on one side wherever it's going to attach. So if this is attaching to the head, I want to leave a little bit of frayed extra wool on this end, okay? This is kind of extra long, so I'm going to tuck some of it in, but you just want to leave one side like soft where you're attaching it, okay? So I'm just going to go around. Making sure everything's covered. This is the bottom, so I'm going to smooth this out a little bit more. Okay, it still has a little bit of extra fluff. The outside could probably still use some more work, but for right now, I'm just going to show you guys how to attach them. Okay, so I'm going to take the head, oops, rolling away. And with this extra kind of fluffy side, I'm going to decide, okay, I kind of want the head to be there. And this fluff, I'm going to hold these two together like this, just kind of holding it gently. And with a needle tool, I'm going to press some of this extra fluff kind of into that head. That way it attaches to the top. And working my way around so that helps to kind of adhere the body onto the top, onto the head where the neck is. Okay. You see that? So this is like a little bulbous part of the extra part. And I'm just working it way into the top. And I'm trying to go in deep because I really don't want this body to fall off. So really trying to get it nice and deep in there. I'm going all the way. This is about maybe a little over an inch. And I'm pressing it in all the way to really make sure that enough of that wool gets latched and hooked and buried into the top of that head. Okay. If for some reason you don't have enough of this wool that you left out, you could always get a piece, like a little strip. Okay. And kind of just make it like a little scarf, wrapping it all the way around. And using that little scarf piece, you can do the same thing and just kind of bury that in one direction and the other way. So that way it's going down into the body and up into the head, really making sure it kind of attaches both parts. Okay. All right. Just trying to get this smoothed out a little. Okay, so now even if I were to try to pull it apart, it's going to be attached enough where it feels kind of firm. Okay, so that is the head and the body. Okay, of course, it's probably going to need some more work. I went on it really quickly just for the video, so it's going to need some more smoothing out. But I do want to show you guys how to make all the little appendages and accessories. Okay. And some of these are very similar to what we just did. So let's say, for example, I want to make the little foot right here. Okay. So then I would just take some of the wool and roll it up into a ball. Okay. And in order to kind of guess or estimate how much you'll need, try to pack it tightly and try to see if that's going to be enough. So if I'm putting it up to this, right, then, okay, it looks like it might need a little bit more because you want to consider it's going to shrink down a little, okay? Or if I'm comparing it to this one, it looks the same size now, but it's going to shrink down, so I probably want to add a little bit more. So I could just get another little wisp of it and maybe just wrap this whole thing up. And kind of roll it up like a little tube. Holding it down so it's very dense. Okay, as you're using this styrofoam as your base, well, this is just insulation foam, so not like a professional felting mat. You can buy a regular felting mat for this, but styrofoam is fine. You can just roll it around so that you're not latching the wool into the foam. See how it kind of sticks to it? Okay. So you just want to make sure you're moving it around. That's kind of going into the foam. And that's okay as long as you lift it up as you're working and kind of tuck that back in. Okay. So that's how I would maybe shape this little leg. And then as you're doing the final details and smoothing of the leg, then you don't really want to shove it into the styrofoam, okay? So it's fine to kind of do this more aggressively first to make it form of your leg, and then more gently and on the surface like this as you're doing the details, okay? So just think as you're starting the form, you really want to go deeper. As you're doing the surface and smoothing, you want to just not go so deep, okay? But right now I'm still basically making the leg, so I really want to go deep all the way, rolling it around as I go, okay? And it's starting to just come together a little bit more, okay? Maybe here at this point, I want to switch to 1 or 2 needles. Okay, this is how you would kind of hold the 2 needles. And I can use this to do the smoothing of the little details. So now I'm maybe trying to just shape the leg a little bit, not going into the foam. Okay. And this is where my leg is going to attach. So I'm kind of trying to leave this side fuzzy. Okay. And so I'm going to attach this one to this one just because it needs a leg anyway. Okay. So now it's a little bit more dense. It's about the same size as the other one on the other side. And I'm going to try to put them just right across from each other, holding that in place. And with the needle tool, starting to kind of tack this down. Okay. Once that's kind of really gently on there, I can lift it off and it's not going to come off. And I can start just going around the whole thing, making sure it's attached, going deep enough. Probably the whole depth of the needles. This is about 1 inch long. This is a fairly small needle tool. There are different sizes, so if you do get like a kit, it should say on there like medium, small, large. So I kind of like to work with the smaller needles, but whatever feels comfortable is fine. Okay, so I'm just attaching this leg, making sure it's connected all the way around. Okay. To attach it, especially, again, go all the way, the whole length of the needle, so maybe about 1 inch, making sure you hear that crunching sound, okay? All the way around, even through the top of it, see? Really just make sure some of those fibers in the middle get attached too, okay? And then, as you're done attaching it and you want to just smooth out the surface, then you can go in a little bit lightly and gently and in different directions, just to smooth it out, okay? So that's pretty good for one side. You can see on the edges. Okay. A little lumpy, but we can keep smoothing it later. All right. So that's how you would attach the 2 legs. Okay. And so I'm going to continue on this first one and show you guys how to make the antlers and the nose. So my antlers, let's see, where's my color for my antlers? Okay, I think I'm going to make the antlers just this light color so you guys can see them. On this one, I had this brown color, but I don't have that anymore. So I'm just going to use the white. Okay. So take a little piece of felt. Okay. So again, this is probably like a palm full here, very light and wispy. Got some little grass in it. Okay. And I'm going to just roll this up in my hand or in my palm very densely and see, okay, is that going to be enough to make the antler? And it looks like it should be the right amount. These are kind of big. And once I pack it a little bit more tightly, it's going to stay kind of like this size. So this looks pretty good to me. If you need to trim some of it off, you can. And then you can get little scissors and, you know, get some of the extra off. Oops. Okay. So I'm just going to roll these little pieces. And when I'm rolling them, I'm trying to make them like little tubes. So I'm kind of rolling it like a little tube. Trying to pack it nice and dense. Really hearing that crunching sound as I connect them and press into it. I'm going to continue rolling it so it doesn't get stuck to that styrofoam. They do sell a piece of styrofoam at like craft stores, but don't buy the styrofoam. I just use this one because we had extra. So if you're gonna buy something for this as a mat, just buy a needle felting mat. And it should be a piece of styrofoam that's wrapped in like felt. So definitely just don't waste your money on buying a piece of styrofoam. Okay. All right, so the top part I'm gonna want to smooth out because I want the top of the antler to be nice and round. Okay, but the bottom where I'm attaching the antler to the head, I kind of want to leave it fuzzy still so it can have something to attach to. Okay. So at this point, I can kind of see, okay, it's getting a little bit dense. You can kind of compare it and say, okay, that's looking like it's going to be about the right size if I adhere it on here with the felting. Okay. And so you would just keep going and add another little piece the same way. Maybe an even smaller little chunk of felt. Make a really tiny little tube. Just like that. Maybe half the size of that one. This one's really wanting to pop open, so I'm gonna try to roll it and felt it as I go. Okay. Okay. So probably spend more time on that, but you would just attach these two pieces. So this side is fuzzy. Okay. This end where I'm attaching it is fuzzy. So when I go to attach these together, there's a little bit extra that's going to overlap. Excuse me. And attach right here. Okay. So I would probably want to spend some time, smoothing that out a little. Okay. Shaping it a little bit more, kind of cleaning it up. Okay. And then when I'm ready, then I would attach this to the head. Okay. And so because we're using two different colors on this one, okay, I want to make sure that I'm attaching it and I'm just going straight into the head and not really spreading out those fibers as much, just because I don't want the other color to kind of be scattered all over the top of the head. Okay, so I'm kind of just going straight down. You can see it from the top, really trying to get those extra wispy little fibers and just tuck them down straight along the edge. Okay, and it's important that you leave those extra ones or else you're not really going to have much to kind of adhere it with. But again, if you need some more fibers and you forgot, you could always get like a little scarf, wrap it around again, and then use those extra fibers to attach a part. Okay, so that's kind of how you would attach one. So we're really trying not to get this extra fuzz right here. So I would just kind of slide it around and felt it up against the side. Just so it looks nice and clean. Okay, and again, that's just if you have two different colors. So on this one, I did the same thing. I just kind of wanted to keep the colors in right next to that antler. So I just felt it right there. Okay. All right. So for this nose, we kind of cheated and found these nice beads. So if you wanted to make a little red ball, you could the same way that you made all the little accessories by rolling up a little piece of red and attaching it. Okay. I do have a little piece of extra fluff right here, so I can just use that as the little scarf. So let's say I'm adding this little nose. This one just has one antler, so I'm just going to attach it anywhere. And if I needed some extra wool here just to help kind of adhere it, again, I would just kind of wrap it around here like a little scarf just tuck that in, okay? The whole nose itself, again, we want to just use even from the top, pressing into the face. We just want to don't do it too much because then you're going to flatten out the nose, right? But at least we want to get some of the felt attached, but mostly on the edge right here where we added this little extra bit. And that's going to help us attach it. And I want to go both ways too. I want to get some of this red on the nose because that's going to help it stick to it in that direction. Okay. So whenever we're using that little scarf to add felt, you just want to make sure you go in both directions. So this is going into the nose. This one's going down into the head. Okay. And that's going to create a nice kind of even look, and it's not going to become detached. Okay. All right, so you would do that all the way around, maybe a little bit more felt, wrapping it around the nose to attach. Okay. That's how it's going to end up looking like this. All right. For the eyes, you do need like the awl or some kind of sharp tool, needle, a nail or something like that to make the eye opening. Okay. And this might be a little bit tricky to see, so I'm going to just try to go really close. And wherever I'm going to put the eye, you want to make sure that this area is nice and smoothed out. So just make sure you go over it with the needle tool enough to get it the way you want, because you're not going to be able to later. I'm going to use the awl to press in. I would even go in like an inch or try to hit the center of the head. And you really want to wiggle it and make the hole much bigger than you think you'll need. So if we're to pick up the eye, it has a little tiny, it looks like a little peg. So this is very small. So just make sure the opening is bigger than what you would think. Okay. So I'm also going to place my fingernail right where the opening is, just so I know where it is in case I lose it. Sometimes it gets lost. It's hard to see. I'm going to wiggle it. And then I'm going to take away the awl and then immediately drop that eye directly in where I had it. Okay. Pressing it in there. And then, if you wanted to put a little bit of glue in there, you can, just to make sure it doesn't really move. Okay. Same thing on the other side. Try to get the eyes where you want them. So maybe I'll put the other one over here. Okay. Put your fingernail, bury that all fairly deeply in there, more and longer than the size of the eye peg. Okay. And then immediately go and drop that in there. It's going to want to close up on you. That's why you kind of have to do this a little bit quickly. Okay. So this little guy has one, one antler. Okay. So I'll probably redo this with a nicer set, but we have the eyes on there. We have the nose somewhat stuck on there. So you can see this one's a little bit more complete. Okay. So all we have to do for the remainder of this is to add the little hands, okay? And then add the little accessories that you want to add to it. So in the picture, it had like a little bow, but I'm going to show you guys the scarf just because the scarf it's a little different. For the bows, you would just make two little balls, right? But for the scarf, you just want to make sure you start with a nice long piece of felt. So let's start with like a pink piece, right? Just to show you. And for this, I would recommend kind of making it into a longer ribbon and just kind of folding it in on itself. Okay. I would even roll it and twist it. So you're starting to make this scarf kind of flat already. And with this process, use the larger one, but don't go so deep because again, it's going to get stuck to the styrofoam. Keep flipping it over. Don't go so deep. Keep flipping it over. Okay, go in different directions. Okay. Flipping it over. This is kind of how you would make like a flatter shape. Okay. And make sure that at this point you have enough. So you have it really wispy. So if you needed to add more, you could still add more. So let's say this is going to be the scarf, and I want to just make sure I have enough for it to go all the way around and make a little extra. Okay. So I would probably add a little bit more right here to this end, the softer end, to make it long enough. Okay. If you accidentally made it too long, of course, you could always pull some off or cut some off. So if it's still fairly like light, not too compacted, you can pull some off and that's fine. Or you can just get the scissors and trim it. Okay. So that's pretty much how I would do this. I would make it just very thin, going all the way around. Thin, but not thin enough to see through it, right? I would even maybe fold it in on itself a long way. Now attach it. So we're just trying to get a nice long strip for the scarf. And this one's pink, but you know, you can make it whatever color you'd like. So I'm just checking to see here how much I have. All right, it looks like it's gonna have enough to maybe add it right there. Okay, so I would probably work on that a little bit more. This one's kind of already more completed. So let's say I wanted to add a little green, you could add a little green scarf to it. So whatever kind of accessory you wanted to do, okay? If you wanted to make little cheeks, like pink little cheeks, all you need to do is get just a little small, barely there kind of wisp. I don't know if you can see it in the back of my hand. Wispy amount of pink. Roll it into a little circle if you can in your palm. Barely there amount. Placing it on there. And with 1 or 2 needles, to give it some little pink cheeks. But you don't want this to be so dense. So even there, it kind of looks like it's getting really dark. So I'm going to take some off. So we can cut some off with the little snips. So it kind of looks like it has like a little bit of blush. Just to make it extra cute. Okay. Super light in there, so you could add a little blush on each side. You could add different colors. You can make this the scarf striped, however you really want to do it. Oh, I didn't add the hands, but of course you can add the hands onto here. So it's really up to you kind of how you want to work on your design and you know what style you want it to be. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to show was the mouth. So I'm going to get a little piece of this white or kind of creamy color, and I'm going to twist it into a very, very thin mouth. And it's going to be just a little wispy piece, maybe like about 1 inch long. I'm going to twist it. You guys can see that. Very, very small. And I'm going to cut it to about 1 inch. And this kind of just takes some trial and error to get the idea of how much wool to use. And let's say I wanted to add a mouth, okay? Want to make sure it's nice and twist it up so we don't have a lot of extra fibers everywhere. It's going to be a little bit longer than you think because, again, you're going to bury some of it into the felt. So I'm going to start in the middle of the mouth. And as I go from the center outwards, I'm gonna just start tucking the fibers in there. Okay. And as you tuck, some of the wool is going to get pulled into it. And so that's why you want to start with extra, because you might not end up with very much when you're done. Okay. So let's say I'm adding a little mouth. All right. So see that mouth got compacted in there quite a lot. Could probably make it shaped a little bit more smiley, but it's fine. Okay. So you could add a little tiny mouth in there, the cheeks, the eyes, scarf, whatever kind of accessories you want. Okay. And of course, you can prop it up and make sure it's balanced. You can even add a little tail to give it a little bit more balance. Or you can even attach a little accessory keychain. So this is like the little plug that would go inside, and you can turn it into a little keychain. If you put a little bit of thread, you can turn it into a little ornament. So very versatile little project that you can make into lots of different things. Okay. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the little Rudolph, and hope you guys have a very wonderful holiday season, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.